My name is Emma Carter, and at 22 years old, I became the first person in my family to earn a college degree. After balancing coursework and two demanding jobs for four exhausting years, graduation day finally arrived. But instead of seeing my parents cheering from the audience, I received a text message just hours before the ceremony. "Sorry, honey, the Anderson family reunion is today. You know how important these gatherings are to us." I crossed that stage completely alone, clutching my diploma, forcing a smile for the photographer as if nothing was wrong. Then I sat in my car in the parking lot and sobbed until my mascara ran down my cheeks in dark streaks. That moment shattered something inside me, but it also ignited a transformation that would change the course of my life forever. Let me share how I rebuilt myself from that heartbreak. Drop a comment below, and let me know where you're watching from. If you have ever felt invisible to the people who are supposed to see you most clearly, hit that subscribe button and stay with me, because sometimes being overlooked is exactly the catalyst we need to step into our own power. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, a place where ambitions rarely extended beyond the neighborhood boundaries. The house I shared with my parents was a modest ranch-style home built in the 1970s, with faded yellow siding and a lawn that was more weeds than grass. Our front porch sagged slightly, and the screen door stuck every single time I tried to slip out to the library unnoticed. We were not desperately poor, but comfort was a foreign concept in our household. My father, Robert Carter, had spent nearly 20 years working at a manufacturing plant before it closed down. After that, he drifted between warehouse jobs and delivery gigs, never bothering with benefits or planning for tomorrow. His philosophy was simple: deal with today's problems today. Tomorrow can wait. My mother, Linda, worked irregular shifts at a local hair salon. When she was not working, she spent hours scrolling through social media, posting cooking videos, or chatting endlessly in group messages with her longtime friends. In our home, three things held sacred status: ice-cold beer on weekends, football season, and maintaining family traditions, no matter how hollow they felt. My parents did not read books unless they were automotive repair manuals. They did not watch news programs unless they featured sports highlights. They never once attended a parent-teacher conference unless the school threatened consequences. When I brought home academic awards, honor roll certificates, first-place ribbons from writing competitions, perfect scores on mathematics exams, my mother would glance at them briefly, nod, and return to scrolling through her phone. My father would mumble something like, "That is nice, but did you remember to take out the trash?" But there was one thing they never saw coming: the secret applications I was filling out late at night that would change everything. From an early age, I understood that I did not fit the mold my family had created. I did not care about sports statistics. I found small talk draining and felt no connection to those weekend family gatherings centered around comparing home renovations or discussing who just bought a new truck. Instead, I fell deeply in love with knowledge, any kind of knowledge. I consumed books hungrily, sneaking novels into the bathroom to avoid teasing from family members. At 13, I was studying the 2008 financial crisis, immersing myself in concepts like portfolio diversification, market volatility, and consumer behavior patterns, subjects that nobody in my household had ever discussed or even heard of. They labeled me strange, calling me a bookworm and a loner. Once, my dad told his friends right in front of me, "It is like this kid was accidentally delivered to the wrong address." Someone laughed. I forced myself to laugh too. But internally, those words felt like sharp blades cutting into my chest. I cannot recall the last time either parent asked me if I was okay or what I was thinking about. Family dinners were background noise to television programs. Whenever I attempted to share something about school, my mother would interrupt. "Hold that thought. This is the good part." Later never came. I learned to be silent. I learned to depend entirely on myself. But I also learned to dream. I dreamed of a world beyond Cleveland. A place where I would not need to apologize for being different, where I would not have to force myself into a role that never suited me. I imagined someone eventually saying, "Emma, we need perspectives like yours," or even just, "We see you." As I grew older, the truth crystallized. If I wanted to escape that invisible prison, I would have to break free myself. Nobody was going to rescue me. Nobody would hand me an opportunity on a silver platter. I had to claim it, and that meant doing something I had never done before, taking massive action in complete secrecy. I remember the exact evening I submitted my first college application. It was a Friday night. The entire house buzzed with energy, fried chicken from a local takeout place, my parents glued to a rivalry football game, my mother pulling chocolate chip cookies from the oven. I was locked in my bedroom, hands trembling as I used the second-hand laptop I had saved for months to purchase from a pawn shop. I clicked submit on my application to Ohio State University, a school I had never dared to mention aloud at home. Over the following weeks, I sent out 10 applications total, each one completed in secret during late-night hours when the house was asleep, the only light coming from my desk lamp while the muffled sound of the television drifted from the living room. I used fee waiver codes my school counselor had quietly provided. I hunted down every small scholarship and grant opportunity available. I knew with absolute certainty, without financial aid, leaving Cleveland would remain an impossible dream. I hid acceptance letters under my mattress. When the thick envelope from Ohio State arrived with a partial merit-based scholarship, I held it in my hands for almost an hour, unable to believe it was real. I imagined sharing this incredible news with my family. But when I finally worked up the courage to tell them, their reaction was nothing like I had hoped. All the effort I had poured in had finally materialized into something tangible. I picture myself sharing this momentous occasion with my parents. I imagine my mother embracing me warmly, my father proudly declaring, "That is my brilliant daughter." But somewhere deep inside, I already knew the reality would look vastly different from my fantasy. That evening, while my family sat eating reheated spaghetti, my mother had forgotten the oven was on and nearly burned dinner. I carefully opened the envelope, placed it on the kitchen table, and announced, "I got accepted to college. Ohio State. They are offering me a partial scholarship. I can actually go." My mother looked up from her phone, eyebrows raised as if I had just said something completely absurd. "Ohio State? You mean in Columbus? You are seriously planning to leave home?" My father chuckled, chewing his pasta before waving his hand dismissively. "That place is full of privileged kids. What makes you think you are some kind of genius? You'll finish that degree and still end up back here unemployed like all those other kids from down the street." Then he turned to my mother with a smirk. "Told you reading too much fries your brain." I sat there, still gripping the letter that moments ago had felt like pure treasure. I am not abandoning anyone. I just want an opportunity. I will work. I will handle everything myself. My mother sighed heavily, slicing into her garlic bread as she muttered, "And who exactly is going to handle the housework? Who is going to help me with grocery shopping? You do not just get to walk away from your responsibilities whenever it suits you." Nobody said congratulations. There were no hugs, no proud smiles, no celebration. I cleared the dinner dishes like I did every single night, retreated to my bedroom, closed the door, and sank to the floor. My emotions churned violently, part joy, part grief, part rage, part complete exhaustion. More than anything, I felt profound disappointment. Not because they rejected my ambitions, but because they did not even attempt to understand them. 3 months later, I received official confirmation of my scholarship package. Quietly, I began preparations. I picked up shifts at a pizza restaurant to save every dollar possible. I scavenged used textbooks from the library. I packed essentials into cardboard boxes collected from the local supermarket. The morning I departed, the sky hung gray from overnight rain. My father was still sleeping soundly as I rolled my suitcase toward the front door. My mother was deeply engaged in a Facebook debate about proper cornbread techniques. I said clearly, "I am leaving now." Nobody looked up. Just a distracted voice from behind. "Do not waste money on silly things." I closed the door quietly, dragging my suitcase down the gravel driveway I had walked countless times as a child. Each step felt impossibly heavy. Nobody saw me off. Nobody hugged me goodbye. Nobody whispered, "We are proud of you." But I kept walking forward anyway. College would test me in ways I never imagined, and the friends I made there would become my true family. If you're enjoying this so far, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. I arrived in Columbus on a humid August morning, early mist still clinging to the brick buildings and trees lining the sidewalks. The bus station sat nearly a mile from campus housing, so I dragged my cheap suitcase along uneven pavement, weighed down not just by belongings, but by a crushing loneliness that seemed to settle into my bones with each step. My assigned dormitory had 4 floors. My room occupied a small corner on the 3rd floor, just a twin bed, a wooden desk, and an old dresser. I shared the space with Sophia, a junior studying pre-law from New York, Dominican-American, incredibly organized, and so intensely focused she intimidated me initially. But Sophia was also the first person to ask me a seemingly simple question. Coming all this way, did your family help you move in? I did not know how to respond, so I forced a smile and nodded vaguely. I was not ready for anyone to discover the truth, that I had boarded a bus like someone fleeing a place that never truly wanted her. During my first week, I secured a position at a small sandwich shop called Danny's Deli, just 6 blocks from campus. My schedule filled immediately. Full-time classes mornings and early afternoons, work from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m., then studying late into the night. It became an endless cycle: class, work, study, repeat. My meals consisted of leftover sandwiches from the shop or 79-cent instant noodles from the dollar store. Within weeks, I began losing sleep from pure exhaustion. One afternoon, I fell asleep during a macroeconomics lecture, my head slumping onto my textbook as if I could absorb information through osmosis. My professor, Dr. Harrison, noticed. He asked to speak with me after class. I assumed he would reprimand me, but instead he asked gently, "How many jobs are you working right now?" When I answered honestly, he did not judge. He simply nodded thoughtfully and said, "I have a research assistant position available. Mostly data organization. The pay is not much, but the hours are flexible. Interested?" I said yes immediately, without hesitation. That job allowed me to reduce my hours at the sandwich shop and spend at least some afternoons in an air-conditioned office. It was also through Dr. Harrison's class that I met Marcus, a pre-med student with permanent dark circles from constant studying, and Rachel, a biology major, a brilliant black woman with natural hair and a mind sharp as a scalpel. The 3 of us began studying together at the library on weekends. Gradually, they became the first people I could genuinely open up to. One night, while Marcus and I worked on an assignment at 1 a.m., he joked, "Emma, when was the last time you actually rested?" I shrugged. "Maybe 8th grade?" Rachel chimed in with mock seriousness. "We should start a support group. People who forgot what relaxation means." And just like that, we became the survival squad. They were not just classmates, they were the only space where I felt truly seen and heard. Meanwhile, my family back home never called to check on me, except when they needed something. The breaking point was coming, and graduation would reveal everything. My family rarely called to ask how I was doing. They never inquired about my studies, my friends, or whether I was tired. Each time my phone rang, I knew it would be one of 3 things. My mother asking me to verify a utility bill because she was convinced the company was overcharging, my father requesting that I research appliance repair costs online, or worse, "Do you have any extra money? I need to pick up a few things." Over time, I learned to exhale quietly after each call and immediately return to my homework as if nothing had happened. Not because it did not hurt deeply, but because I knew that if I allowed myself to truly feel the pain, I would completely fall apart. Each semester passed, and somehow I maintained a GPA above 3.9. I still do not fully understand how I managed it, but I simply did. I threw myself completely into books, into work, into anything that could help me forget I was living a life that often felt like a shadow existence. Then 4 years slipped by faster than I ever expected. My final spring semester arrived, bathed in soft golden sunlight and a race against time to complete my senior thesis. I was nominated for a competitive internship at a renewable energy investment firm in Denver. Marcus was accepted into medical school. Rachel received an offer from a nanotechnology research program. We, the survival squad, had climbed through every obstacle, every hidden barrier, every moment of doubt. We stood proudly at the summit we had built ourselves, ready to cross that final threshold, graduation. And I believed with my entire heart that this time, my parents would come. They had to. How could they possibly miss the day their daughter became the first college graduate in the family's history? I began planning 3 months in advance. I mailed an official invitation to their home, complete with a campus map, parking instructions, a list of nearby restaurants, and a handwritten note. I have already booked the hotel room, so you do not need to worry about anything. I even called my mother directly to confirm they had received everything. She answered, her voice unusually enthusiastic. We got it. Do not worry, sweetheart. There is absolutely no way we would miss your graduation. Hearing those words, I felt tears welling up. I had waited my entire life to hear them. I booked a hotel near campus, nearly $400 for 2 nights. That represented 3 weeks of work at the deli, every shift, every tip carefully saved. But I did not mind. I called it an investment in creating a memory worth treasuring. But then, 3 weeks before graduation, something shifted. When I brought up campus parking passes, my mother changed the subject abruptly. I am cutting vegetables right now, honey. You're talking too fast. 2 weeks out, I texted her a photo of my graduation dress. She replied with a brief, pretty followed by, but that same weekend, the Johnsons are hosting their biggest barbecue ever. They are even hiring a professional caterer. I froze. The Johnsons, our neighbors famous for extravagant parties. But this time, their event fell on the exact same weekend as my graduation ceremony. I thought they promised they were coming. But what happened next would shatter me completely and force me to make the hardest decision of my life. I thought you said you were definitely coming, I texted. It was not until the next day that I received a reply. Your dad's knee is acting up. He cannot drive that distance. You know I am terrible with highway driving. Plus, Susan asked me to bring my famous cheesecake. She is counting on me. I stared at the screen, my hand clenched so tightly it turned completely white. The graduation ceremony was scheduled for 10 a.m. on Sunday. The barbecue did not start until 5 p.m. The drive from Cleveland to Columbus was barely an hour and a half. They absolutely could make it work. They simply did not want to. I texted back. Mom, this is the day I have spent 4 years working toward. It is also the first time someone in our family will graduate from college. This matters. 5 minutes later came her response. Do not be so dramatic, honey. There will be plenty of other special occasions. I bit my lip so hard, I tasted blood. I did not send anything else. I went to pick up my graduation gown and cap from the student services office. When the staff member handed me the pressed black robe and the cap with its shimmering purple tassel, I turned away quickly, terrified she would see my eyes already turning red. I still held their seats at the ceremony second row, left side of the stage, 3 empty chairs waiting. The night before graduation, I prepared everything meticulously. Dress ironed perfectly, shoes polished to a shine, honor cords draped around my neck, and my name listed proudly in the commencement program. Emma Carter, GPA 3.93, Phi Beta Kappa. Near midnight, I left my parents one final voicemail. Tomorrow is graduation. The ceremony starts at 10 a.m. I have saved your seats. If Dad is tired, Mom can drive. Even if you're late, I still hope to see you. I will be waiting. The next morning, I woke at 6 a.m., got dressed in silence, pulled my hair into a neat bun, applied blush so I would not look too pale. I left the dormitory early, walking through morning fog so thin and gray it felt like a veil of sorrow settling over my chest. Campus was packed. Everyone had someone. Some students brought grandparents in wheelchairs. Younger siblings ran through the grass, wearing t-shirts printed with their graduate's face. Laughter, names being shouted, cameras clicking constantly. It all rose like ocean waves crashing around me. I walked to the student check-in area carrying my phone in the pocket of my gown, just in case they arrived late. At 9:52 a.m., my screen lit up. My heart clenched tight, but it was not a message. It was a Facebook notification. Linda Carter had just posted 3 new photos. I tapped to open them. The first picture showed a table overflowing with food, cheesecake, appetizers, and chilled drinks. The second showed my mother with Susan, both wearing matching aprons and grinning widely. The third was a group selfie captioned, "Sunday barbecue beats everything." That moment changed everything. What I did next would either destroy me or set me free. I checked the timestamp. 9:56 a.m. I stood frozen, my hands trembling so violently I had to grip the fabric of my gown to steady myself. Then a voice called out over the loudspeaker, "Emma Carter." I swallowed the massive lump in my throat, took a shaky breath, and walked out into the center of the field, surrounded by hundreds of people clapping. Not for me specifically, just clapping. I bowed to receive my diploma, smiled for the camera, and just as I turned to walk off stage, I glanced over to the second row on the left. 3 empty seats. Never filled. After the ceremony, while everyone gathered for family photos, I slipped past them quietly, avoiding cameras, avoiding the pity I saw in people's eyes. I walked straight back to my dorm room, still wearing my gown. When the door closed behind me, I finally allowed myself to collapse. I buried my face in my hands and cried, not because they did not show up, but because I had genuinely believed this time would be different. 2 days later, my phone rang again. It was my dad. I answered, my voice still raw and hoarse. "Hello." His voice came through, casual and light as ever. "Hey, Emma. I need a favor. The roof is leaking badly. Looks like the whole back section is damaged." The repair guy quoted around $3,200. "Your mom mentioned you probably got some graduation money gifts, right?" In that moment, I realized something with brutal clarity. To them, the degree I held mattered less than a roof repair invoice. I do not remember how I ended the call. I just remember sitting motionless on my bed afterward for nearly an hour, phone face down on the pillow, eyes locked on the tiny crack in the ceiling. That night, I did not sleep at all. I quietly opened the graduation photos Rachel had sent me. Pictures of me standing with my friends, still managing to smile despite my swollen, red eyes. Photos of me receiving my diploma, sunlight catching the folds of my gown, creating a glow that looked radiant but felt utterly hollow inside. I opened my laptop and logged into the employee portal of EcoFuture Investments, the company I had accepted an offer from 3 weeks earlier, a financial analyst role in their renewable energy division based in Denver, Colorado. I typed a brief email to the hiring manager. "Due to unexpected personal circumstances, I would like to inquire if it is possible to begin earlier than my original start date. I am prepared to relocate to Denver immediately." The next morning, I received a reply almost instantly. "We fully support the change. The company will provide 2 weeks of temporary housing. Please send us your travel details so we can arrange your welcome." I read that sentence over and over like it was a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. A new city. A place without cutting words and broken promises. A space where I could begin again, this time carrying nobody's expectations except my own. But before I could start fresh, I had to face my parents one final time. What I said to them would either break our relationship forever or finally set me free. I packed my belongings carefully, not much to take. A few changes of clothes, my laptop, essential textbooks, and a single framed photo of me with Marcus, Rachel, and Sophia from an all-night study session. People who had stood beside me simply because they cared, not because they needed anything from me. Before leaving Columbus, I called my mother. "I am moving to Denver next Tuesday. I cannot help with the roof right now. I need time to sort things out emotionally. When I am ready, I will reach out." Silence on the other end. Then she replied, her voice tight with barely restrained irritation. "You are acting like we committed some terrible crime. Family members help each other. Do not forget who raised you." I bit my lip, working to keep my voice steady and calm. "I have not forgotten anything. But help should come from genuine love, not from guilt or obligation." I did not wait for her to say anything else. I simply whispered goodbye and ended the call. That evening, I returned to the old pizza place where our group used to meet regularly. Marcus handed me a small leather-bound journal with a note tucked inside. "Write the next chapter in your own words." Rachel hugged me tightly and said simply, "Denver has no idea what is about to hit it." I laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks. That laugh was not performative or forced. On Tuesday morning, I rolled my suitcase out of the dorm, taking one last look at the campus that had become my second home over 4 transformative years. I did not know exactly what awaited me in Denver, but I knew this much. I was bringing the only person I could truly count on, myself. And that was enough. As the plane lifted off, I looked down at the tiny rows of houses below, feeling as if I was leaving behind not just a city, but an old version of myself, a version that had spent far too long chasing validation from people who were never going to offer it. I was not angry at them anymore. I had simply let go. 7 months passed in what felt like a dream. I settled into Denver with its crisp mountain air and sense of possibility. The temporary apartment Eco-Future arranged was on the 14th floor of a modern building downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the Rocky Mountains, a daily reminder that I had actually made it. My first week at the company felt surreal. Kind colleagues, a supportive manager, and nobody pried into my personal history unless I chose to share. I had lunch with fellow new hires, explored local coffee shops on weekends, and bought myself the first bouquet of flowers I had ever purchased, placing them in a glass vase on my desk. A simple act, but one that made me feel like I had control over something, however small. I had not called home. I had not texted. I wanted space to be someone new, untethered from the roles of dutiful daughter or family ATM. I needed to discover what life felt like without constant criticism or skeptical glances. To see if breathing came easier without them. And it did. Breathing was easier. Until one Saturday morning when my phone started buzzing repeatedly. After 7 months of complete silence, the name Mom lit up the screen like nothing had ever happened. They wanted something again. I could feel it. But this time I was ready. What happened when they showed up in Denver will shock you. My chest tightened instinctively, but this time I did not tremble. I did not answer immediately. The text came minutes later, short and casual. Dad and I are thinking about visiting Denver. Found cheap tickets for next weekend. Are you free? I stared at those words like they were a slow-moving wave approaching the shore. Not a single check-in for 7 months. Suddenly, they wanted to visit. I was not sure what the real reason was, but I knew my parents well enough. They did not travel anywhere just to visit unless there was a specific agenda. Hours later, I replied neutrally, "If you come, you should book a hotel downtown. My apartment is too small to host guests." My mom read it immediately, but did not respond until evening. "Is this one close to your place? It is expensive. Are you sure we cannot stay with you?" I held the boundary I had worked so hard to establish. "I am sure. I need my own space." I expected anger or passive-aggressive guilt. Instead, the next message came back surprisingly sweet. "All right then, I will book it for 2 nights. Make sure you find time to see us, okay?" In the end, I agreed to meet them, partly out of curiosity, partly because I felt strong enough to face them now. They arrived on a Friday afternoon. My mom stepped out of the rideshare holding a bag of homemade cookies, wearing a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. My dad looked noticeably older, more gray hair, a fuller midsection, still wearing that same worn flannel shirt, shoulders slightly more hunched. I hugged them politely. They hugged back, but I could feel the disconnect between us. I was an upgraded version of myself. They remained the people who never understood why I needed to change. That first evening, I took them to a southwestern restaurant downtown. My mom smiled awkwardly through most of the meal. My dad stared at the menu like he could not believe a burrito cost $12. They asked polite questions about work. I gave them summaries: finance firm, sustainable investments, risk analysis for renewable energy projects. Mom nodded, but her eyes stayed on her plate. Dad took a sip of beer, then suddenly set the glass down and said, "Actually, we came to Denver because there is something important we need to discuss with you." I set my fork down, heart sinking with instinctive dread. I knew that tone. I had heard it my entire life. He continued, "My buddy Mike is starting a property management business. It is a startup opportunity, you know. He needs some early investors. They are targeting a suburb outside Columbus. If he can get about 5,000 up front, he says you could buy in as a shareholder. I figured with your finance background, you would recognize this as a solid opportunity. My mother added sweetly, "Of course, we are not pressuring you. We just genuinely thought this could be a wonderful chance for you to help the family grow financially." I looked at them, the pair who had never once prioritized me over a sports game, a neighborhood party, or a weekend barbecue. The pair who let me walk across that graduation stage completely alone, then called afterward only to ask if I had money. And now, after flying across the country, their sole reason for finally seeing me was to ask me to invest in my dad's friend's business venture. I placed both hands flat on the table, clenched them tightly to stay composed, then looked straight into their eyes without flinching. "Did you come here for me, or for the money?" The silence that followed felt suffocating. My father crossed his arms defensively, his jaw tightening before he finally snapped. "That kind of talk is incredibly disrespectful. I flew all the way out here, and now you are acting like we are freeloaders." I took a deep breath, my heart heavy but my mind clear.
"No, Dad.
I am simply trying to separate genuine love from obligation. Every time I needed family support, I was optional. But whenever you needed something from me, I became a responsibility." I stood up calmly, picked up my wallet, and left my card on the table. "I will pay for this dinner, like I have paid for everything else, including trust that was never reciprocated." My father called after me, voice rising with frustration. "If you walk away now, do not expect us to open our hearts to you again." I turned back one final time. "You do not need to open your hearts. You just need to learn how to look backward and reflect. As for me, I have already learned everything I needed to." I walked out of that restaurant into a Denver evening that had just seen light rain. With every step, it felt like I was shedding weight I had carried on my shoulders for years. I walked home, raindrops speckling my jacket, my heart simultaneously aching and lighter than it had ever been. The message came close to midnight. "Can you drive us to the airport tomorrow morning? Ride shares are expensive here." I did not respond right away. I made myself a cup of hot tea, sat by the window watching city lights shimmer like veins of possibility I never thought I would be allowed to touch. Then slowly, I picked up my phone and typed, "From the hotel, walk 3 blocks to the light rail station. The A line goes directly to the airport. $3.25 per person. Safe travels." I set the phone down, turned off notifications, and returned to the warmth of my own carefully built life. No more waiting for approval. No more seeking validation from people incapable of giving it. 1 year later, on this very day, I stood on the trail circling Denver City Park, my sneakers dusty from the path, early morning breeze brushing gently through my hair. The sun had just risen, casting soft golden light across the lake. Nobody walked beside me, and I did not need anyone to. I came here alone, but I was no longer that girl in the black gown who graduated in silence. I was Emma Carter, Senior Financial Analyst in the Renewable Energy Division at EcoFuture Investments. I had my own apartment with bookshelves I had built myself, photo frames filled with genuine laughter, and a cat bed positioned perfectly in the sun-drenched window. I had a life nobody handed to me. I built it brick by brick, breath by breath. I drew clear financial boundaries, no emergency transfers, no joint investments, no last-minute rescues. I sent birthday cards with modest gift cards tucked inside. I was no longer their backup bank account. I was an adult with the right to say no. Last week, I was invited to join the advisory board for a first-generation college student program at Ohio State, supporting those without family histories of higher education. I said yes immediately. This morning, I am meeting a student named Maya, a sophomore from Cincinnati unsure whether to pursue economics. She messaged me that her parents want her to choose something more practical and less risky. I smiled sadly reading those words because in that brief sentence, I saw a reflection of my younger self. And for the first time, I realized I no longer felt trapped by my past. I live fully in the present, a present I deliberately chose. On my living room coffee table, I keep a small photo frame holding a picture of me in my graduation gown standing between Rachel, Marcus, and Sophia. Not one of them shares my DNA. But every single one is family, chosen, not assigned. The kind that never abandoned me, never demanded, never turned love into a transaction. I used to believe that walking alone meant I had failed. That if nobody was there to applaud, the achievement did not count. But now I understand. Walking alone is not failure. It is the first step toward genuine freedom. If you have ever found yourself standing at the edge between what your family expects and what your heart truly longs for, I hope you know this. You have the right to choose. You have the right to walk away, even if you must walk alone. Not because you are selfish, but because you deserve a life that does not require you to shrink yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. Comment your thoughts and share your own experiences. Like this video if Emma's journey touched your heart. Share with someone who needs to hear this message.